Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you. So welcome to Raj IAS study group. So as promised, today is Friday. I am Drushti and today we'll be discussing a couple of topics ranging from internal security to your social issues. Today is your class 6th and getting getting here has been a good journey and what we have received, the tremendous response we have received is a great feedback for us, which shows us that we have been able to help you out in your preparations to a huge extent, right? So let's get started. Good afternoon, Yamandeep. So let's get started. Let's see the index of topics today that we'll be covering. So we'll be covering, first topic is going to be AFSPA. We have discussed, good afternoon Bapan, welcome. So today we'll be discussing AFSPA. AFSPA, a bit of it we have discussed earlier also, but now the government of India, Union Home Ministry has decided to reduce its footprint to a very large extent in 3 states of Northeast. So we are going to discuss in detail how the journey has evolved and how we have reached here, right? Then we are going to discuss about UAPA. UAPA deals with section 124A of IPC, popularly known as the draconian sedition law. So this has been in news because of a verdict given by Session Courts of Delhi. And then we are going to discuss a report by United Nations Population Fund. This topic again revolves around your women issues. So as you can see, पिछले 3 weeks से, from past 3 weeks, continuously women issues are in limelight. Some or the other news is coming up because of women issues. So we can expect a good number of questions in this year's papers, right? So let's get started with the first topic. So first topic is Armed Forces Special Power Act, AFSPA. Why this was in news? This was in news because Home Ministry has decided to reduce the number of disturbed areas districts, right, as per AFSPA in Assam, Manipur and Nagaland. Manipur, we have already discussed Manipur and Nagaland's issue in detail, not holistically, but I've given you a bit of idea. If you have not seen that video, please see that, right? So Assam also has been in news because of a couple of reasons, particularly due to Bodoland issue and the territorial disputes with West Bengal and all. But right now we are going to discuss Assam's AFSPA issue, right? So these are the areas. So I've taken this infographic from Indian Express. There was a very good article in Indian Express about it. If you want, you can read it from there. Please make it sure you do not miss your editorial sections. So editorial section is going to help you write better answers in your mains, in your essay as well as your ethics paper, right? So make it sure you read your editorial section. So this dark purple area, it shows AFSPA where it is still in force. This light purple area shows where it is fully lifted, and this peach area shows where it is partially lifted, right? So if we come to Assam, it is lifted fully from 23 districts and partially it is still there in 1. It still remains in 9 districts. Which 9 districts I'll tell you, and these 9 districts are popularly known as Assamese heartland, right? Now if you come to Nagaland, from Nagaland it has been withdrawn totally from 3 districts and partially from 4. The withdrawal covers 25% of the state's area. Then if we come to Manipur, from Manipur it has been partially lifted from 6 valley districts and it remains still in force in the hill districts. Manipur का क्या issue है? The hill areas, they are occupied by Naga people, and the valley, it is inhabited by the Meitei people. We have discussed Meitei people ka issue. They have been demanding ST status, and there we have discussed the Kuki, Naga, Mizo and Meitei rivalry, right? So again, if you have not seen that video, see that video for reference, and then you can make it out what tribal issues also are surrounding this area. Hi Rohit, it's okay if you're late. We have just started. Please catch up, right? So now AFSPA has been in force in northeastern areas since 1968. And what are the reasons that AFSPA has been in force? First, it was taken as a measure to counter insurgency in the border areas, because northeast is connected with the mainland India through Siliguri corridor, which is also known as Chicken Neck Highway. If you have not seen it, please open the map, your atlases, and locate Siliguri corridor. It is very, very, very important, because this is what connects the whole of northeast to the mainland India, and China desperately wants to control that particular chunk of land so that it can have control over whole of northeast, right? Now, second reason why AFSPA was made in place was to check local militancy and infiltration by the terror groups, right? Terrorists, also the Naxalite groups, a bit of them, right? Then Government of India wanted to ensure enough boots on the ground to hold the peace. Why army was put in place? Because either the local people, local police was not capable enough, or they were compromised, right? They had back channels with the terror groups, and hence keeping peace there became a task. So AFSPA has been there in place since 1968, but three questions arise, right? Three important questions arise that it has been 60 years of AFSPA. From round about 60 years, AFSPA has been in place. But the first question that arises is, has AFSPA really helped political violence? First. Second, is army really meant to fight your ideological battles? Because the problem in northeast is, Naga people, they have their own certain sort of issues. They are demanding for greater Nagaland, right? It's about their ethnic identity, their tribal identity, their culture. Similarly, Meiteis have demand regarding their culture. So it is sort of an ideological battle. Government of India has been in conversation with all these representatives, and still if we look at the bigger picture, we haven't reached anywhere. We have just come up with the watered down accords. So is army really supposed to fight your ideological battles, or army is supposed to protect you from external aggression, right? And the third question that arises is, the AFSPA has been in place for so long. What is the government going to do now that it has decided to lift the army control from these areas, right? So these questions are in place, and let's see how the story will unfold. If we come to our next topic, AFSPA I've already discussed with you. Let's make a quick revision. It was introduced in 1958, right? Introduced in 1958, and it confers supreme power on your military personnel, right? You can arrest anyone, you can destroy their shelters if you suspect them to be involved in terrorist activity. There has been a tremendous lady named Manipur has been the Manipur is allegedly has suffered the most because of it, and there is this tremendous lady called Irom Sharmila. She has been on hunger strike for Manipur, that AFSPA should be lifted from Manipur since 2000. A couple of years back she broke her hunger strike, but she has been jailed and she has gone through a lot. right? These are the details. AFSPA allows any commissioned officers to to fire upon, force against any person acting in contravention or any law for the first time, being in force in the disturbed area. You can go through this infographic, I've already discussed it, right? Now let's come to the topics that we have not discussed. What is the definition of a disturbed area? So basically, a disturbed area is what, where the governor or the administrator feels, is of the opinion that such state or a UT is not in a position to hold peace and it requires civil intervention. The armed force intervention is required for the aid of civil power, right? So basically the governor or the administrator holds the supreme power. Now there's section 4 that is mentioned a lot. What section 4 says is, section 4 mentions the details of the army officers. They can be members of military, they can be commissioned officers, warranted officers, non-commissioned officers, or any other individuals, right? Any other individuals who are permitted to shoot, use force, and even they can cause death to sustain civil order, right? And the detention of suspect without a warrant, the use of force against someone who has committed a cognizable conduct or against whom there is a clear suspicion that he has undertaken or is about to conduct a cognizable offense. Everything comes under AFSPA. So this shows how it gives army supreme and unprecedented power. Now problem is, this unprecedented power has caused a lot of issues. Women from Manipur, the civil society groups from Manipur have come forward. First problem that has been repetitively reported is of sexual abuse. The army officers this has come allegedly, they have sexually abused the tribal women, the local women. Then there is issue of human rights breach. Then army personnel have been alleged to use the localites as human shields, right? And there have been news that the people who were taken in custody, who were under arrest, they have vanished from the custody itself and there has been no sign of them since, right? Then there has been issue of fake confrontations and lot of robberies and loss of human life, right? So AFSPA has resulted into many issues. Now reasons why AFSPA was put first in place. Secessionist is the key word. Secessionist means where you want to disintegrate from the union. India as a whole, when you demand your separate country, separate land. So this secessionist and nationalist and anti-nationalist activities, I'm sorry about this, secessionist and anti-nationalist activities as they grew in northeastern states, eventually in all 7 states AFSPA was introduced. Okay, then in Assam, particularly in Assam, when Ulfa was a extremist group there. So when Ulfa led militancy was at its peak in 1990s in Assam, at that time your AFSPA was put in place in Assam. I'll show you right now. This is Assam's map. So red colored portions of the map, they are proposed from lifting of AFSPA, but these are the 9 districts where AFSPA still remains in place, and these are known as the Assamese heartland. Which are these districts? Tinsukia, Dibrugarh, your Charadio, Sivsagar, Jorhat, Golaghat, East Karbi Anglong, Dima Hasao and West Karbi Anglong, right? So these are the districts which are known as Assamese heartland. So Assam ka reason ye tha, this was the reason why Assam had to be controlled by AFSPA. In Manipur, as we have already discussed, Manipur, there has been Naga, Kuki, Zo rivalries. So when Naga dominated areas, they started facing this separatist activity. Three districts, they were initially put under AFSPA. They were Senapati, Tamenglong, later on Ukhrul was added, and then Kukki Zomi, where this rivalry it has been continued, there also AFSPA was extended. I'll show you in map. So this is your Senapati, Ukhrul and Tamenglong. This is the area from where it is proposed that the AFSPA will be lifted, but from these three districts the militancy also shifted to Chudchandrapur. So this has been a area which has been hugely affected by the terrorist activities, not per se terrorism but the extremism, right? Now when it comes to Nagaland, AFSPA was passed in the parliament at time when there was a demand for greater Nagaland, and still the Naga National Council, it rose to such an extreme level that the government of India had to take a hard stand. Now particularly this area, the Mon area, has been in news. A couple of casualties have taken place, and the recent event which took place here where civilians, they had to lose their life, and it was a very sorry state of affairs, where then army had to retaliate, and again there was further retaliation. So Mon district has been in news, and there is this place called Oting. This has been in news, and there was a series of events that happened in 2000. In 2000, a series of events happened in with Manipur, which is known as Malom tragedy. So these are the reasons why government of India has been under pressure to take the decision of AFSPA, take it back. So this is the Nagaland's map. You can see from these districts, it has been asked that we take away the paramilitary and military forces. Now these are the accords that have happened recently that have led to the withdrawal. There was an agreement in March of 2022, agreement regarding the boundaries of Assam and Meghalaya. There has been a dispute going on, right? So this was the major factor which led recently to this series of events. Now there has been the popular Bodo Accord. There has been issue of Bodo people. They have been demanding their own land, Bodo land. So there was Bodo Accord which was signed in January 2020. Then there was this Karbi Anglong agreement which was signed in September 4, 2021. So see, the continuous talks that have been going on, they have led us to somewhere. There have been this peace accords, peace agreements, right? So there was this Karbi Anglong agreement of September 24. Then in January 16, 2020, Bru Riang refugee crisis happened. This has been going on for a couple of decades now. So we reached on an agreement on Bru Riang crisis also. Dobara news mein aayega, so we'll discuss it again. What is Bru Riang crisis and how events have unfolded till now. Now the NLFT SD agreement also happened. This was signed in August 2019. So these are the reasons. These are the reasons why this government decided to the withdrawal of AFSPA. So Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so we have someone who's from Assam. Very glad. Ankit Gupta is asking, what does heartland mean? So heartland is which is the core area of Assam, right? Where in internal security terms we refer it to heartland because the major area of contention lies here, right? So this is why the term Assamese heartland has been used. Now, there have been a couple of committees and panels that have been in place since a couple of years. So, there was this Jeevan Reddy panel. It was put forward in 2004, and what they gave, their verdict was the legislation should be repealed, and it is a symbol of tyranny and a tool of handedness. Like it actually means you are controlling people out of power, and this is sort of a dictatorship. Then there was a Supreme Court panel under Justice Santosh Hegde, and even his verdict was that AFSPA has failed to confront the insurgency problems and it should be repealed. Then there was this second Administrative Reforms Commission report headed by Veerappa Moily. He has been minister also. So he recommended that, he endorsed these recommendations. Then former Home Secretary G.K. Pillai, he also supported the repeal of AFSPA. And our former Home Minister and Finance Minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram, he also had said that the act, if it cannot be repealed, it must be amended at least. Right, now let's come forward to what can be the way forward. So since the continuous talks have been going on, we can still hope they reach a peaceful solution, but this is how we feel the government can proceed. So government intervention is required to improve security. Why? Because A, it is the question of internal security, and B, because our northeast shares international borders with China, West Bengal, so it becomes a question of external security as well. So government intervention is required for security, but we have to make it sure that it is, sorry about that, it is unobtrusive, right? Then one major problem also with northeast is of drug abuse, so we have to cater to that as well. I forgot to mention it here. The drug abuse, we discussed about golden triangle, right? The golden triangle issue, so we have to address that as well. Then we have to provide employment and offer to the youth of northeast, very talented people. There is this incredible fashion designer called Prabal Gurung, if you have heard his name. So he comes from our northeastern area, and he has done commendable jobs internationally. He's a very renowned fashion designer. If you know about him, good enough. If not, Google up. So third point is, we have to usher in peace accords, but we have to make it sure that they are concrete peace accords, not watered down just compromises. So we have to sit on a table with considered with the respective groups that are involved, and we have to reach a conclusion so that the better peace is achieved in that area, and the people, they actually can live their lives like normal mainland India lives, right? Someone has a problem, they cannot understand my handwriting. Okay, I'll try writing it clearly. I'm sorry about that, but I've written drug issue and this is golden triangle, right? Now the question is of let's come to our second topic. Second topic is UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The act first came forward in 1967 and then it was recently amended. So why this was in news? This was in news because the session courts in Delhi has denied bail to Umar Khalid. Umar Khalid has been in news for the past couple of times. So they have denied bail to Umar Khalid in the cases which were popularly known as the Delhi riot cases. So let's quickly discuss what UAPA is. So Unlawful Activities Prevention Act was put forward in 1967. This I've already told you, and it was put forward by Parliament because it was believed that the sections 123 and 124 of IPC, they were inadequate to address the issues of address the issues of controlled organized crime and of terrorism, right? So UAPA deals with these acts, these issues. Now this is an infographic. Let's discuss how UAPA has been amended. So UAPA was amended in 2019. UAPA has given definitions of terrorism. What is the definition of terrorism? Central government can designate an organization as a terrorist organization when it commits or participates in acts of terrorism, it prepares for terrorism, promotes terrorism, or is involved in terrorism, right? The bill also empowers government to designate individuals as terrorists on same grounds. But what has happened is, if you look at the data of NCRB, around 67% of cases, although the people have served for a long time life sentences, not life sentences, the detentions, people have served detentions for a long time, almost 60% of the cases, they are null and void, right? They result, ultimately when it comes to court, they result into acquittals. But for that period of time, just to control what they are speaking, government allegedly puts them into detention centers, and this is where the whole issue is revolving. Human rights activists, the Dalit activists, and the left activists, they have come forward and they have been fighting that this is a draconian law and it should be repealed. There is a difference between enticing terrorism and freedom of speech, which has been clearly spelled out in Constitution of India. Let's come back to the act. Then as per this act, there can be seizure to your property, NIA is involved, there is a level of officers given that if the case is charged, then officers above this rank only can prosecute you, and the investigation of cases, it goes on for longer periods than IPC. Even the charge sheet, it can be filed, it can be delayed for a longer time, which puts the individual at risk. So as I discussed the NCRB data says around 67% of the cases they result into acquittals, right? And provisions of act, usually if you want bail in a case, you can get bail within 14 days, but under UAPA it can be delayed to 30 days. And even in the case of charge sheet, instead of 190 days as in case of IPC, it gets delayed to 180 days. So these are the issues with UAPA. Now Supreme Court of India has given a couple of directions about freedom of speech. So Article 19 speaks about freedom of speech, all of you must know about it. So what Supreme Court has said, that Article 123 and Article 124 of IPC, sections 123 and 124 of IPC, as discussed in this case, Kedarnath versus State of Bihar case, Supreme Court under Article 19 has given the definition of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, it has three components, that is discussion, advocacy and incitement. Now what Supreme Court has said is, it is only when the person who is involved, if what he is saying is limited to discussion and advocacy, it is to be considered as freedom of speech. But if what he is saying is leading to some sort of terrorism activity, or it leads to some sort of provokement, then it falls under the realm of mischief sought to be quelled by section 124A of IPC, right? So this is Supreme Court's verdict. Now, key observations that court has made during these times are that terrorist act should not be used lightly, so that you can just shush every voice. See, democracy, this is not how democracy works. Everyone has a right to speak in a constructive manner, but everyone can put forward their opinion even if it is against it. Not just because the opinion is against state's opinion or state's stand, you can label it as a terrorist activity. So this was court's first finding. The second finding was terrorist activity is that which travels beyond capacity of law enforcement agencies, right? This was put forward by Supreme Court in this particular case of Hitendra Vishnu Thakur. If you have not read about it, please go through it, both the cases, Kedarnath versus State of Bihar and this Hitendra Vishnu Thakur case, right? You'll get these in the PDF that will be provided you in groups, but please do read about these cases. Case studies are important for quoting examples and also from your interview perspective. If there's a direct question in your interview, you can quote these cases as precedent has been said this and this, and then you can tell your answer. Now, UAPA has been in news for a lot of time. There have been continuous discussions and debates over it, but no final verdict has reached. There was an amendment, but still it is considered to be a draconian law. Let's see how the case of Umar Khalid proceeds in a couple of days, but for now the person has been denied what he was demanding by the session courts, right? Now, United Nations, our third news is about social issues. This United Nations Population Fund has released a report about abortions, and this is an eye-opener for India. Although the IMR and MMR have drastically reduced in India, but in a couple of states it is still on a very high note. UNFPA is United Nations official branch that sees the demographic transitions all over the world. I put in the Malthusian graph in the first slide because Malthusian concept deals with the demographic transitions in society. So you should be able to link your static with your current portions, right? So this State of the World report, State of the World Population Report, SOWP, is an annual report that is published by United Nations UNFPA branch, which is the official sexual and reproductive health agency of United Nations. In 2022, the spotlight is on a critical theme, and theme is expecting more, the preventable crisis of unintended pregnancies. So, पिछली वीडियो में we discussed in detail about abortions, unsafe abortions, what are the causes, the ethical dilemma of it. If you have not seen this video, please go through it. Now, if it comes to report, first is what is the definition of an unintended pregnancy. Sorry about that. So, it's typically defined as one that is not wanted, unwanted, or that is mistimed. You are not hoping to get pregnant at a particular point of time, but somehow due to n number of reasons, what reasons they could be, we are going to discuss in the slide ahead, but you conceived, and now majority of women in all over the world, they go for abortions then. Most of the pregnancies are teenage pregnancies all over the world. particularly in Asian and African countries. This has been under SDG also, preventing SDG goal 3, if you remember. I hope you have learned, remembered all the goals by now. If not, please do remember them, at least the broader sections of them. So the report says 48% of all pregnancies in the world are unintended. This is what the report says. And 60% of these unintended pregnancies, they often end up in unsafe abortions, which is a global health crisis. So this is your keyword. UNFPA has declared unsafe abortions as a global health crisis. I cannot tell you how important this is, but when you see the question in mains, you'll know why I was emphasizing on women related issues so much. Like, this is the 3rd week and continuously we have been getting news related to women issues. Now, let's discuss causes of unintended pregnancies, and these causes have been given in UNFPA list. I have not come up with them. These are the official listed causes. First is rape or sexual coercion by a stranger or someone at home. The sex related violence has come to such a huge extent all over the world, not over in India, and a majority number of times it ends up being an unwanted pregnancy. So rape or sexual coercion by a stranger or even someone at home, someone you know, your neighbor, your relative, anyone. Then there is lack of awareness because of poor sex education at schools. See, in India, sex education is not the part of your school curriculum, but if you talk about abroad, in many Western countries and even Latin American countries, your sex education is part of your school curriculum. So students are taught in school about it. They have particular classes related to it. But in countries like India, Bangladesh, the still developing countries, the lack or no knowledge of sex education at schools because teenage pregnancies. So this is one of the major reasons why unwanted pregnancies they happen. Then the concubine theory. The concubine theory. There is a constant pressure from families on women to get pregnant, and that too from a very early age. So this is one of the major reasons. Then the contraceptives which can prevent pregnancies when you are having intercourse, they may be inaccessible, B, unaffordable, or C, they can be unavailable. So the absence of unavailability of contraceptives is another reason. Then there is misnotion and fear about the usage of contraceptives. So the same reason, poor sex education and misinformation, the superstitions that revolve around contraceptives, this is one of the major reasons. Then there is shame, stigma attached to the use of contraceptives. People are ashamed to go to medical stores and ask for contraceptives because in India this topic is still considered as a taboo and people are either ashamed of it or are shy or they shy of it. Then there is shame and stigma attached to use of contraceptives. Then the health providers which are supposed to educate you, supposed to help you out, even they are unhelpful because you do not receive a proper guidance. You end up being in a position where you do not want to be. Then not having the choice to use contraceptives because your partners or your families, they would not allow it. The same theory of forced pregnancies because you want to have multiple children. Even there is a religious angle to it if we see in India. See, majority religions, they believe that children, they are sent to you by God's blessing or by God's grace. So majority religions, I guess all religions, they despise the concept of abortions. So there is a religious angle to it. The ethical angle to it we've discussed already in our previous video. Now there is the question of lack of bodily autonomy. The same question we discussed, if it's a woman's body, is it her choice to have abortion or to conceive a baby? So there are a couple of data that have come forward from this report. 13% of young women 13% of young women in developing countries, they begin childbearing at a very early age. In teenage, before 20, usually the girls, they are already mother of 2 children, and the result is poor health of both mother and child. Physically and mentally, the health status of women is reduced, and the child hence born is unhealthy, stunted. There is a problem of malnutrition, and the unending cycle of disease, healthcare and poverty, right? Then 3/4 of girls who had a first child below the age of 14 had second child before turning 20. I already told you that. Then more than half of the additional births after your first birth to adolescent mothers were rapid repeat births, that is occurred within 24 months of a previous month. No proper family planning has been there. The appropriate amount of gap has not been given between 2 births. But again, the question here arises of bodily autonomy, whether the women were forced to have children or whether it was their personal choice. Then 40% of girls with 2 children went on to have a third child before turning 20. So if you see a woman has 3 children before 20, what her own physical health status would be, what her own mental status would be, and what the child's physical and mental health status would be. Now let's discuss. There have been a couple of highlights that I've taken from the report. Although the maternal mortality rate in India has improved, it still remains high in many states, particularly the states of Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, UP, MP, Bihar, Odisha and Assam. Right, so the maternal mortality rate has been raging high in these states. It was recently seen in the reports by the Registrar General of India, which I discussed. Also in National Family Health Survey 5, it was evident. Then despite amendment in the MTP Act, Medical Termination to Pregnancy Act of 1971, recently it was amended, still because of the taboo attached, because of the stigma attached, the abortion remains the third leading cause of most cases of maternal mortalities, right? There are complications, then because it is unsafe, it is illegal, and it is done by unskilled people who do not know what they are doing. There is excessive amount of blood loss, and ultimately it causes untimely death of the mother, right? Then while teenage pregnancies, they have declined in India by 1%, there is more that needs to be done. Now there are a couple of issues that are surrounded surrounding around the unsafe abortion issues. The first question is of gender issue. Gender issue as in the bodily autonomy of a woman. Then the issue of gender discrimination, patriarchy. Then the coercion into having children. And third, bodily autonomy, and also the endless cycle that has the endless cycle of domino effect of this patriarchy and poverty put together. then it has been construed as an issue of human rights. See, a woman is a person and she has some rights. Having an abortion, whether having a baby or having abortion at the right age or what age she wants, has been contended a lot. Then public health crisis, UNFPA has already declared it as a public health crisis. Also, many women, because the abortions are still illegal in many countries and they are unsafe, it leads to their death. So this has been a question, constant question. Then because women are forced to either marry early or have children early, whatever case, so they have to either drop out their educations or they have to quit their workforce. So this is one of the major reasons that even IMF had said a couple of years ago that if you exclude women, you are excluding 50% of your workforce. So particularly in India, if we talk about India, due to pregnancies, due to their childbearing capacities, women are pushed to discontinue their occupations. They are pushed to leave their work, and this leads to some damages, actually a lot of damages on our economic levels as well. Then there are physical and mental health issues involved. If you have multiple children without proper gaps, you are unable to take care of yourself and you are unable to take care of your children. Then you are unable to meet their demands and your personal demands, which lead to depression. I have discussed it a couple of times, postpartum depression, PPD. This is a burning topic these days, right? So postpartum depression, and children at a very young age, they are, since they are unhealthy, unfit in their own bodies, also their cognitive abilities, they do not develop in a proper manner in which they should if they were healthy physically. Right now, there are a couple of arguments that have been given, right? So pregnancy should be considered as an aspiration. You should want to have a baby, not, it should not be imposed on you that if you have conceived, having a baby is the only inevitable scenario for you. So pregnancy should be an aspiration, not an inevitability, right? Women should be empowered as girls and it should be their choice. It should be their affirmative decisions, that whether they want to have a baby and when they want to have a baby. Also about their sexual activities and their motherhood, right? They should be informed, so that they should have proper knowledge of it, so that they can make a proper informed choice related to it. Now family planning and safe abortion tools, right? They are crucial tools in preventing the maternal health. These should be made available in all public health centers, and in even in our daily course, these things should be talked about freely, so that the people, just because of unawareness, ignorance, lack of knowledge, they do not end up being in situations which can cost them their lives. Then the question comes of informed choice and volunteerism, volunteerism in choosing for contraceptives, right? So here also the stigma and taboo should be removed, and India should come forward with a policy where safe medical abortions are a choice, available healthy choice to the women in the country together, right? Then we have to increase our focus on improving the demand of uptake of post pregnancy contraceptives that are available, that can be postpartum. Partum means once you have had the delivery, right? So postpartum IUCD, post abortion IUCDs, postpartum sterilizations, also ensuring that these are not done by unskilled people illegal people, but within proper ambit of healthcare workers and qualified legal doctors who can make them happen in safe way. Then strengthening your intersectoral organizations, concerned intersectoral organizations which involved your active involvement from civil organizations, your civil group, civil society, and bringing them together on your community platforms, right? So one of the major portions which can address around 60% of problems is your SRH, sexual reproductive health services. They should be gender responsive and stigma free. If this is achieved, we will be able to solve around 60% of problems that revolve around women and children of this age group, right? So this is all for today. We have discussed these 3 topics in details. If you have any doubts, please mention them in comments. I'll try taking them up in my next video. I hope you're preparing well. This is a long journey. Keep learning, stay tuned in. We'll meet tomorrow again, same time, 2:30. Till then, keep watching. Thank you so much.